What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the specs of the iPhone 5S to the Samsung Galaxy S4. Now the 5S has been highly anticipated and it's just been announced today. It's not a major upgrade to the 5, hence the name 5S rather than 6, but the 5 was heavily compared to the S3 last year, and no doubt there's going to be lots of people wanting to decide whether to go for the iPhone 5S or the Samsung Galaxy S4 this year. So what are the key differences between these two devices? Well, do hit that thumbs up button and let's find out in this head-to-head spec comparison. So we'll start off initially with the dimensions. The 5S is actually the same size as the 5, so it's roughly about 12.8 millimeters smaller in terms of height and about 11.2 millimeters smaller in width compared to the Galaxy S4, and it's roughly about 0.3 millimeters smaller in terms of thickness. So not a huge deal in terms of thickness, but in terms of height and the width it is quite a bit smaller than the S4. Now the reason for that is obviously because the S4 has a much larger screen. It's got a 5-inch screen compared to the 4-inch screen on the 5S. So although the 5S will be feeling a lot more compact in the hand and easier with the one-handed usage, you're going to have more real estate on the S4. In terms of the resolutions, the S4 has that full 1080p HD screen, which is 441 pixels per inch, a very high PPI. The iPhone 5S on the other hand, personally I'm quite disappointed by this because it's the same resolution as the 5. You've got 1136 by 640 pixels. That's roughly about 326 ppi, so a much lower PPI on the 5S here. And again, it's not HD either, so it's not even 720p HD. It's slightly lower than 720p HD as well. So videos generally on the S4 are going to be looking that much better. You're going to have a larger screen with that pixel for pixel resolution, so 1080p videos pixel for pixel are going to be looking better on the S4. Now I understand why Apple have done this with the 5S, and it's mainly because of the apps. They want to keep the apps consistent, so developers aren't going to have to develop higher resolution apps for the 5S. And because it is a incremental upgrade, then that's the reason why they've kept this similar, but quite disappointing, especially because there's so many other 1080p phones out there with very high resolutions. And in terms of the weight, the iPhone 5S, because it is a lot smaller as well, is lighter as well, 18 grams lighter than the S4, so again overall more compact. Now the build, the S4 has that polycarbonate plastic with the hyperglaze finish. Now this is arguable, a lot of people don't actually like it. Samsung do this to keep the weight of the device low, and based on the size the weight is quite low, so it might not feel as premium as other devices such as the iPhone 5S, which has the aluminium unibody design. So the iPhone 5S is going to be looking and feeling that much more premium compared to the S4's plastic build. Now speaking of the internals, the S4 has a 1.9 GHz quad-core processor. You've also got an octa-core version which has 4 at 1.6 GHz and the other 4 at 1.2 GHz. Now the iPhone 5S comes with the A7 chip. They've not been completely specific in terms of what the cores are or what the clock speed is, but it's supposed to be twice as fast as the iPhone 5, the original iPhone 5. So looking forward to checking that out. It's also a 64-bit chip as well. So again, with performance, we will have to see these side by side and check them out in hand. The S4 has 2 GB of RAM. The iPhone 5S, they've not been completely clear. The iPhone 5 had 1 GB of RAM, so hopefully this has 2 GB of RAM, but we're not completely sure here because they've not been clear about it once again. Internal memory, you've got the same options, 16, 32 and 64 GB versions on both of these areas here, but the S4 does have expandable storage. You've got micro SD up to 64 GB, so you're going to be able to expand the memory that you have on the S4. On the iPhone 5S you don't have the option, you're just stuck with the storage option that you get initially. So if you are somebody who has a lot of media on your device, then it may be worth going for the larger options such as the 32 and the 64 GB versions. Now looking at the cameras, the S4 has a 13 megapixel camera. It's a pretty good camera, and you can see lots of tests on it on my channel, including versus the iPhone 5, and it's a very nice camera. It's got some nice unique features. One to mention is the dual camera mode, so you can use both the front facing and the rear facing camera at the same time, which is quite unique. The iPhone 5S, they've gone with an 8 megapixel camera, which is an interesting move. So instead of going for more pixels, they've gone for larger pixels, 1.5 microns per pixel. They're calling it the eyesight camera, so that'll be interesting to see. Larger pixels do mean a better low light performance generally, but again we'll have to see these side by side, and as soon as I've got the iPhone 5S in hand, we'll do a side by side comparison on the channel in the usual style, so do make sure you're subscribed for that. The iPhone 5S also has a true tone flash, what they're calling it. It's a dual LED flash, so you've got one warmer flash and one cooler flash, which is supposed to be giving you better skin tones. The S4 only has a single LED flash, so again, side-by-side comparisons will tell us more. Now in terms of video, both of the rear-facing cameras on these devices do 1080p at 30 frames a second, which is pretty standard and quite nice, but you've also got an advantage on the iPhone 5s, which is 720p at 120 frames a second, so you're going to be able to do some nice slow motion on there. That's really nice to see. Front-facing cameras, you've got 2 megapixel camera on the S4, which is capable of filming 1080p HD. The iPhone 5s, they've still stuck with a 1.2 megapixel camera, which is only going to give you 720p HD. Now again, this is quite disappointing for me because a lot of the other competitive devices out there do film at 1080p from the front-facing cameras, and it's consistent with the rear-facing camera there, but it's quite a bit of a disappointment for me here that it's only 720p on the iPhone 5s. Now connectivity, the S4, you've got NFC and you've also got an IR blaster, so you're going to be able to control your television and other devices with your S4 itself. Now the iPhone 5s, they've not been clear whether it's got NFC or not. I don't think it has, and you've not got an IR blaster on the iPhone 5s here. Now in terms of operating systems, I'm not going to go into a battle here on this video, but you've got Android versus iOS. You've got Android Jelly Bean 4.2.2 with the TouchWiz interface on the Samsung Galaxy S4, and on the iPhone 5s you've got iOS 7. Both of these have their advantages and disadvantages. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Now to mention some key features on both of these devices which are not available on other devices, the S4, you've got things like Air Gesture and Air View, which is quite interesting, so you can do some things on your smartphone without actually physically touching it. And you've also got multi-window support, which is quite nice for multitasking and really using that RAM that the S4 has. The iPhone 5s, the most key feature that I found on here is Touch ID. Now this is basically a fingerprint scanner on the home button, so you're not going to need a password or anything like that. You're going to be able to unlock your device just by touching the home button, and from the demos that I've seen, it looks very nice and quick as well, so that'll be really interesting to see. Also on the App Store, instead of typing in your password or anything, again you can just use your fingerprint ID to get that, and it looks like very advanced technology, and really looking forward to checking that out. Probably one of my most favorite features on the iPhone 5s. Battery, you've got a 2600 mAh battery on the Galaxy S4, which is removable. On the iPhone 5s you've got a 1440 mAh battery, which is not removable, so again the same battery that you've got on the iPhone 5. Now in terms of milliamps, the S4 clearly has the advantage, but it does have a larger screen and more pixels to push out as well, so performance wise we'll have to see these side by side. Now finally, looking at price, the S4 right now you can pick it up for between £400 to £450 here in the UK, or if you want it on contract in the US, I believe it's about $199. Offline it's about $600 to $649. Now the iPhone 5s, for the base version, the comparable version, you're going to be paying £549 here in the UK, or it's $199 on a 2-year contract in the US. I'm not sure about offline prices as yet. So in terms of the comparable models, the 16GB base models, the S4 offline is quite a bit cheaper than the 5s. So those are the key differences between these two devices. The iPhone 5s, just an incremental update to the iPhone 5, has some really nice features. I'm really looking forward to testing out that camera, as well as that fingerprint scanner, the Touch ID. That looks very interesting, although I am disappointed about the resolution and the front-facing camera, which is only 720p. But that's what I think anyway. What do you think? Which device do you think is better? Which one would you go for? Do drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, as always, please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And as I did mention, I will be getting the 5s in for a full review, and definitely will be doing lots of comparisons between this and the Samsung Galaxy S4 hands-on, so do make sure that you are subscribed to see that video and plenty more to come on the channel. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time. If you want to see more regular videos like this one, then be sure to hit the subscribe button, which will be below. If you're on a mobile device, it may be somewhere else. If you want to see my previous related video, then hit the link right here. If you want to stay in touch over Facebook, Twitter and Google+, then all of the addresses will be there somewhere, as well as direct links in the description below. Okay, if you're still watching, then that means you've not done one of those things, so